Kia ora, kouwhil Smith aho. Nau mai ki te whare, welcome to the House. Today on the House, we have two stories inspired by action at Parliament during the week. The first is really a brief manual on how to get your way with politicians. Specifically, how to convince them that the laws being debated need adjusting. A lot of it, when you boil it down, is about being practical rather than political. And then, in the second story later, we find that MPs themselves tend to struggle with that same thing of practicality over politics. But first, this story from Tuesday. Parliament's select committees are full of fascinating stories, but are often beaten for attention by the debating chamber. And that's understandable, but it's unfortunate because the work committees do is crucial if you want to avoid bad law. Bad law is not law you happen to disagree with. It's law that's poorly thought out, poorly drafted, or riddled with unintended consequences.
The timeframes have just been impossible to put in a reasonable bill. It is riddled with errors.
Many of those flaws are found and fixed in Select Committee, and many are identified by members of the public who know what really happens on the ground, because you can't beat local knowledge. The Justice Committee is currently hearing submissions on the Arms Bill, a rewrite of the law over the ownership and use of firearms. Many of the submitters are representing hunting groups or gun collectors or are just gun owners. People with specific expertise and experience, like Zach Dudunsky.
To build that knowledge and share that knowledge, it's important to be able to have freedom of movement from items from our home to meeting venues, to shows, to opportunities for sale.
Watching submissions, I thought it was maybe worthwhile offering a few tips about what works, about how to make a submission more effective. First, if you can, be in the room. There is nothing quite as effective as eyeing the people you are talking to, and nothing harder to concentrate on than hours of poor quality video. Presence is powerful. Case in point, Abdur Razak, President of the Federation of Islamic Associations of New Zealand.
The firearms law, which we are discussing, has been predicated by the grief, the tangible grief, the lasting grief, the memory, and the legacy of the 51 Shahada.
While it's a decent idea to practice, don't just practice what you want to say. Consider what kind of questions will arise in response and how to answer them. If you can engage the MPs in a to and fro, you're more likely to engage their thinking and how to solve the issues you are raising. You want to have time to say this.
So I submit those are the main points in regards to our submission, and open up for questions.
And not hear this.
We're going to start.
Okay.
I'm disappointed because I really wanted to ask you about what you wanted around non-pistol, but you've used your time.
You can read. Sometimes detail requires accuracy, and it can stop you from rambling, but notes and telling is better. Either way, try and leave as much as half your allotted time for that discussion. And for goodness sake, don't read your written submission. You can presume the MPs have already read it. They want to hear the main points and then get into your personal insights. This is a chance to tweak and improve a law, so bring concrete issues and possible solutions. Here, for example, are two issues raised by Fish and Game New Zealand's Richie Cosgrove.
In relation to registration of agency firearms, this bill requires organisationally owned firearms held by agencies like Fish and Game, government departments and councils for pest control to be registered to individual employees. However, firearms are used by multiple staff and the named employee actually has no real oversight over a work tool. Staff are understandably reluctant to register work firearms in their own name. We submit that agency-owned firearms should be registrable to the organisation with a record of authorised users, providing greater clarity and accountability.
Issue, context, solution.
The bill retains the offence of being in control of a firearm while incapacitated by alcohol and drugs, but the threshold is entirely subjective, making enforcement incredibly difficult. We submit that defined blood alcohol levels should also apply, as it does for vehicle drivers. Both provisions can coexist, but a numerical threshold gives enforcement officers an objective, practical tool.
Context, issue, solution, argument. Neat and quite compelling. I chose quick clips to save time. You don't need to be quite that efficient. It depends on just how many issues you intend to raise. Fish and Game left plenty of time for discussion, and so they got to chat through the practicalities and guide MPs thinking further. As you might expect from Fish and Game, they got MPs hooked with something intriguing and then they reeled them in a to and fro. The Justice Committee is continuing to hear submissions and they're due to report back in June. And from the committee, we move to the House, and an event this week that revealed that MPs often trip themselves up, even when they're really trying to do the right thing. The centrepiece of Parliament's week this week was a 2-hour-long special debate on the recently released National Infrastructure Plan. This debate had a slightly different tone to many, with general agreement that we need to better plan for and institute infrastructure.
It's worth noting we've had national infrastructure plans before. There was one back in 2010, I think, then there was another one in 2011, but they were, if I can be so bold as to say, largely politically generated documents. This is a plan that actually takes an independent, clear-eyed assessment of the state of our system and what needs to change. They have made a compelling case for change. We face significant challenges as a country: ageing stock, backlog of maintenance and renewals, an ageing population, and increased exposure to natural hazard events.
MPs agreed that infrastructure planning is too important to be tinged with politics. Their debate tried to mirror this sentiment. Consider this comparison. The previous hour was the weekly general debate. In that debate, Labour's Kieran McAnulty followed National's Nicola Willis and began with a traditional parliamentary welcome.
The Karori Amateur Theatrical Society wouldn't even take that on. That was the worst attempt at acting that I have seen since Christopher Luxon tried to ask a question at question time. But this is what they are at now. The Prime Minister's a dud. The Finance Minister has no credibility, and they are lashing...
An hour later, in the infrastructure debate, he opened like this instead.
The Labor Party supports the work of the Infrastructure Commission and commends it on the production of the National Infrastructure Plan.
He went on to note,
it's long been clear that infrastructure has not been done well in this country. That's why under the previous Labor government, the Infrastructure Commission was established.
Labour MPs took pains to mention that Grant Robertson, as the First Minister for Infrastructure, had commissioned an infrastructure strategy from the new Commission. You can see that even in discussion of being apolitical, there is politics. It is also a call and response. Earlier, National's Chris Bishop had said,
It came about because the government was elected on the idea of establishing a 30-year national infrastructure plan for the country. And rather than write that plan ourselves through the Treasury and through other government agencies, we tasked the Independent Infrastructure Commission with coming up with the plan. I think that was very important, and it's given the plan a degree of credibility and independence.
And both are correct, only partial. The debate was even-handed, even friendly, but they couldn't help demonstrating some of the many burrs in the sock of true bipartisan endeavour. In this case, wanting credit, which goes along with delivering blame, and parochialism, and other habits. Politics credits its own success and others' failings. But here at least, both teams agreed things needed to change, and that political decisions were destructive.
If all Crown infrastructure went through the independent assurance process that the Infrastructure Commission has set up, then we will go a long way to avoiding the cancellation of projects that we have seen in the past. It is about confidence and about certainty. And one way to assure that is if we get the settings right, then it doesn't actually matter what is going to happen at an election, because they know that things have, infrastructure projects have been properly assessed and nothing has been promised without an ability to pay for it.
Everyone seemed to agree with that, but each party came up with different examples of bad political decisions. Here's National's Katie Nimmin and Labour's Tangi Utikere.
The Hawke's Bay Expressway, it was almost all but there. And then what happened? We didn't get in government that time. It got cancelled.
The ferries are a great example of that. That was, let's face it, a political call.
MPs in this debate were mostly very positive. Here's National's Nancy Liu, excited by the opposition's approach.
The willingness to work together for the long-term betterment of our country.
As lovely as most MPs were being, they were also not noticing their own parochial blind spots. Megan Woods.
And even in this debate, where I think we've had some very thoughtful contributions, we can't have missed some of the edging in, the pork barrel politics that has underwritten infrastructure for too long in this country, that thinking being a good politician is talking about the wins in your local patch.
Grant McCullum from Northland on the soon-to-begin Northland Expressway, which had attracted criticism during the debate.
Is that investment a wise investment? Well, for the people of Northland, it is. And it's because we're making up for generations of a lack of investment.
There was a fair bit of local focus, especially from electorate MPs. I think the only MP decrying a new road on their own patch was Green MP Tamitha Paul on the second planned Mount Victoria tunnel.
If you want to save money for the people of New Zealand, don't do that project.
The infrastructure plan, which is not an investment plan so much as a cross between a lamentation and a strategic overview, is a very good thing. But listening to MPs discuss it, even on their very best behaviour, might not ensure confidence that the future will be free of political short-termism. Aisha Verrall, looking towards the coming election, seemed to see a shadow on the political shoulder, and it wasn't MPs' better angels.
New Zealanders want roads, they want hospitals, they want schools, they want an electricity grid that works, and yet it's too tempting for us to lean into the politics around infrastructure that is detrimental to us achieving those outcomes. I am so grateful for the thoughtful contributions that I've heard today that suggest something else might be possible. I don't underestimate the challenge of maintaining this posture from here, though. How easy is it going to be in the next 7 months to promise a road, to oppose a road, to try and make political hay out of cancelling or promoting an infrastructure project?
You've been listening to The House, Te Whakarango Koe Ki Te Whare. This program is produced with funding from Parliament's Office of the Clerk. Mā te wā.